It is August 8th, 2004. We are in Manhattan, New York City to interview Charlie Chiodo.
Right. Chiodo.
Chiodo, good. On camera is Robert Horsting. Nancy Hawkins is doing catalog and sound, and Richard Hawkins is talking with Charlie. First of all, Charlie, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you being
You're
here.
welcome.
Let's start out with if you just tell us your name and when and where you were born.
My name is Charles Frank Chiodo. I was born at 181 Farnham Avenue in Lodi, New Jersey, July 20th, 1920.
Now, I come from a large family, 5 kids, not quite as large as yours. I love to know about family, so I'd like to ask you about your dad. We'll start with your dad. If you could tell us your dad's name.
My dad's name is Michael Chiodo. And he immigrated from Calabria, Italy, and landed in a canal street. And from there, he bought a home in Lodi, New Jersey. And with him and my mother, they had 12 children.
Let's talk a little bit about your dad before we get into marriage and children.
My dad was superintendent of the sanitation department of New York City for over 45 years. And he learned how to speak American, and he had a little accent now. And he was very active with the Sons of Italy of New York City. He was an officer going up the ranks, with the Sons of Italy.
Tell me what kind of man he was. What was his character?
Well, he was, tall, a little heavy, and he would, guide people, where he could, and he loved to do gardening.
How much of a disciplinarian was he?
Well, he was a disciplinarian to a certain extent. That if he told you something and you didn't do it, then he would feel a little angry, and whatever would be, and that's the type of man he was.
Sounds like real straightforward, plain speaking.
Plain speaking. He was on the up and up, and if you asked him to do something, he would do it, and he didn't hesitate about doing it, and people loved him because of his advice.
What kind of values did he want you to learn? What kind of a man did your father want you to become?
He wanted all of us to get an education. And every one of us did get an education. And with the exception of my brother and my sister at the time, but all of us went through grammar school and high school. And this was his main objective, to see us graduate from high school.
Now, you also talked about your dad being on the up and up, honest kind of guy. Is that something that he wanted you to learn?
Right. He had a motto. He said, that motto was that as you're growing up, you're going to work. He says, then you come home from work. He said, if your next door neighbor or your relative calls you, you turn around and say, I'm too tired to go have coffee or something. But his motto was, if that same neighbor or relative called up that someone passed away, you would make the time to go to the wake or to the funeral. And this is what he instilled in us as we were growing up. He said, remember, don't enjoy yourself, because the way you could find time to go to a wake or a funeral, find the time to enjoy yourself.
Did you need to take some water?
No,
No, you're okay with the
right.
water? Okay. Let's talk about your mom. What was your mom's name, and what kind of a lady was your mom?
My mother's name was Palmer. Her maiden name was Caligiuri. And remember, my father, Chiodo. They both immigrated from Calabria, Italy. And she spoke Italian. And she was a type of person that raised 3 families, practically. When my aunt died downstairs, she was taking care of everybody there. And when my aunt died in Union City, New Jersey, she would go there to take care of the children and make sure everybody's okay. So she was a person that everyone loved. She was also active in the church, in Mount Virgin Church in Garfield, New Jersey, with the Rosary Society. And she belonged to the Order of St. Francis. She was vice president of St. Francis Order, and then when she got sick, she had to give it up.
How did your mother and father express to you that they loved you?
Well, they would tell me, hug me and everything else, and with loving, tender, and care. Yeah.
Now, you said you had 12 kids in the family.
Right.
What is it like to grow up with 12 kids?
Well, we would always help one another, in here. And if there was something, we were always there together, at times. And, at times we, had a little spat once in a while, but we always respected each other, and we grew up to love each other. But my sisters, we were 8 boys and 4 girls, and I was the youngest.
Did you get extra special good treatment because you're the baby?
Well, to a certain extent. Yeah.
Now, I'm hearing that in your family, your parents stress education, honesty, you're looking out for your siblings. Yeah, everybody has their spats, but everybody has their spats, so big deal. Church. Your mother was very involved in the church, too. How involved were the kids in the church?
What was that?
How involved were you kids, your family, your siblings in the church?
I was involved with different aspects of cleaning up the church, help cleaning and all. And then I was a member of the Junior Usher Society. I was also an assistant to the priest of setting up the rectory. And then later on, my late brother Warren Chiodo formed a Junior Holy Name Society baseball team. So we had a baseball team, and lost the first game, and then we went on to win 21 games, and we won the Bergen County, New Jersey Championship in 1937. Then in 1938, we won 11 straight games, and they threw us out of the league. They told us, here's the trophy, get out of the league. So what we did, we we stopped playing individually, you know, with different semi-pro teams, but mostly several of us played together. And then with the church, I would assist in the outings, the picnics that they had, the feasts, you know, and different activities. And I was also the stage manager, assistant stage manager for the shows that we put on. And we had a choral society, a senior choral society, who were very good. They were invited to sing on radio, and they were invited to sing here in New York at one of the churches. And I was the assistant stage manager for them. And that's my teenage days.
It's interesting. There's a couple of things that I pick up on. Your mother reaching out to other parts of your family where they have a death in the family.
Right.
She's reaching out and going way far to help them.
Right.
And then I'm hearing you, all the activity you're doing in the church, you're reaching out and you're helping people. Right. It's kind of like a theme I'm picking up on. How important is it to you to reach out and help others?
Well, that's one area that my mother and father instilled in me. And I might as well add this. My late brother Michael Chiodo Jr. Was a fife instructor, and he was teaching many drum corps. And on my 6th birthday, he gave me a fife. And he taught me how to play the fife. And my biggest moment was in 1928, he had taken me to a rehearsal. And when I got there, I was very frightened to see all these men were old enough to be my grandfather. And he said, "You're going to practice with us." And you know, I sort of jittery a little bit, right? And one of the men come over to me and he said, "Remember this." He said, "Everybody makes mistakes." He said, "So if you make a mistake, forget." He said, "We'll correct it." And I remember that very well. And I played with them at a parade in Jersey City. They were called Jersey City Foresters. And that was a big moment for me. And through my life with my brother, with drum corps, we formed the Garfield Pleasure Club, which I have the picture here. And, excuse me.
Feel free to have some water.
Yeah. So anyway, we formed the Garfield Pleasure Club, And he said to me, "You're going to be the assistant fife instructor." But however, we formed it, we got the drum corps together, and he became very, very ill. So it was the point that I took over with him, and then I became assistant fife instructor with him all through the years with different drum corps. And that was my hobby with him, music. And recently I did teach some people, but then I had to give it up.
I heard some pretty big interests you were talking about, the baseball
Right.
and the music with the fife
Right. Yeah.
drum team. With baseball, being Italian, who was your hero? Who was your big baseball hero at the time?
Well, at the time there was Frank Rossetti, there was Zari, Red Ralph was a fan of his, and Lefty Gomez. I'd love to watch him.
Did you get a chance to go watch professional games?
Oh yes, yes. I also was elected to go down to Roosevelt Stadium in Jersey City, where Gus Mancuso was the manager there, and we had a tryouts with them. It was a baseball, and nothing developed of it.
But you got a tryout.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty big stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see. When you were born in 1920,
Right.
In 1929, the stock market crashed.
Right.
And the Depression started.
Right.
Now here you are with your mom and dad, and they're teaching you real good values. They want you to become a good guy.
Right.
Priorities, education, be honest, stand-up guy, reach out and help others, make time for other people, but don't forget to enjoy yourself. I mean, these are all great life lessons. How tight did the money get in your home? How badly did the Depression hurt you?
It was very bad because my father was being paid in scripts, at the time, and it was pretty hard for the family. We had my brother, my sister had to leave school to go, to help out, and it was pretty hard.
Why did your family make it through that hard time? What do you think, what was it about your family that got you through?
Well, we all chipped in, to help out, and we just stuck together, to make life easier for us, as much as possible.
Now I see where you graduated from high school.
Right.
And you also went to trade school.
Right.
How did you get into trade school? How did that come about?
Well, in my grammar school days, my two brothers, my older brothers, were tool and die makers. So in grammar school for my summer vacation, I would go to their place of business, and I would have to clean up the machines and all that, and I learned the trade. So I figured, well, I have the opportunity, so I went to trade school. for 6 months to become a tool and die maker. So that's how I become into the trade of tool and die making.
Now, before we get into the years after high school, I just want to ask a couple more questions about growing up.
Right.
The neighborhood in which you grew up, what was the ethnic makeup?
It was mainly Italian, and it was black. We had the church is still there. It's a Baptist church. But we all grew up together. And what I could remember is that if someone got sick, everybody was there pitching in to help, even with food and everything. Race, color, and creed didn't mean nothing in our neighborhood. It was a neighborhood that everybody knew each other, you know, and it was friendly. And each one, families would help out wherever they can, you know, and assist everybody. And I wouldn't trade that neighborhood when I grew up for nothing, because it was very, very good neighborhood.
Now, in the neighborhood, was there a place like, say, a barber shop or a grocery store or a post office where people gathered and just talked about life and world events and all that?
Right. People would gather at the barber shop, you know, up there. We had old stores over there, but mainly we would congregate on the corners, you know, and then a little later, this fellow put a tavern up, and when he built the building, he built a back room, and it was on Wednesday nights. It was all teenagers. Grown-ups couldn't go in there. He gave it to all us the teenagers on Wednesday nights, right? And that was a place of congregation. And then they had the Strollers Club. That was a baseball, basketball team. And that's where they would congregate there, too, at the hill. And then there was different areas. And during the summer, while I was growing up, we would go swimming down down its lake and all, and then many of us would congregate down the baseball field at night, you know, and then movies. You know.
This type of social activities that you're talking about, like playing baseball, hanging out at the tavern's back room on Wednesday nights, hanging out with friends on corners, but you know, all this sounds like a lot of people looking out for each other. I'm trying to get an idea of what it's like to grow up in your neighborhood. You said it's a place where you wouldn't trade for anything.
Right.
What a place. And it doesn't just sound to me like people only looked out for themselves. They're actually looking out for a much larger group.
Yeah. To add to that, it would be, like I stated, there was the stores there. And as an example, if you go, like my mother would go shopping, she'd have bags, right? The people would take the bags and bring them right up to the house, put them right on a table. That's the type of a neighborhood we were in.
I have heard this same story from so many guys your age. that they grow up in this place, and it doesn't matter what somebody's ancestry is. It doesn't matter what color their skin is. Nothing. What matters is they belong to the neighborhood.
Right.
Now that kind of spirit, that kind of upbringing, how do you think it helped you later on in life?
Well, it helped me to be a grown up. It helped me to learn respect, and it educated me in many other ways. That I set my sights and my aims that I would always help people out. That was my sight and my aim. And through the neighborhood and all this, that's what I did.
Now, you talked about having the opportunity to go to trade school and learning tool and die making, which you did. Yeah. But growing up, oftentimes, and myself included, I've got dreams of I want to become this or I want to become that. What are some of the dreams that you had? What did you want to become?
Well, my main thing was to become a tool and die maker. That was my aim and my goal, and that was my main objective, to become a tool and die maker. But then I had the opportunity to take civil service exams for the Lodi Police Department. And it was the first year that civil service tests were given in Lodi. And I took that test and I came out first on the list. And I was appointed to the police department.
Okay, we're back again, and we're talking about your neighborhood. Just to recap, we're hearing about a very close-knit group of people, regardless of their ancestry, race, skin color, whatever, religion. It's about being from the neighborhood. Everybody's looking out for everybody else. Tell me a little bit about how you yourself, Charlie, help people.
Well, through the drum corps, I was teaching children music, and I was helping them with their school. And I would help them wherever it was necessary. And the people in the neighborhood, the children, we all took a liking to everyone, and wherever we could be of assistance or help with the children, we would do that.
What about baseball? You got that tryout with the pros, even though it didn't work, but that's a big thing, man. Were you able to help the other kids with baseball?
After when it was done, I was teaching children how to play baseball. A couple of years, I assisted the high school coaches with the catchers. Right? And wherever I was helping, I could help them. But in 1946, after the war, this man founded the Lodi Boys Club. It was the Lodi Boys Club. And he come to my home, and he asked my late brother Warren to be the coach of the Lodi Boys Club baseball team. And that was the first baseball team. I forgot to take the picture here. Well, however, when my brother accepted, Frank turned around and said, well, as long as I got you, Wally, is the coach, he said, I don't have to worry about a catcher, right, Charlie? So I looked at him. I said, okay. So then he said, as long as I got Warren as the coach and you as the catcher, Charlie, he says, I have to have Pete as the pitcher. So we formed the Lodi Boys Club baseball team. And we played together for 2 years. At the present, we have a beautiful Lodi Boys Club. The picture of that baseball team is hanging in the Lodi Boys Club. And I assisted in many ways, helped out with the Little League children and all. Then with my own grandchildren, I assisted my grandchildren helping out, as they wanted to play ball.
Now, coming from this kind of a place, I mean, it's a little bit of heaven is what it sounds like. And you decide to become a tool and die maker. You go to trade school. Where was the machine shop? Was it in Lodi too?
No. The machine shop was, I started out in Clifton, New Jersey in 1939. And then in 1940, something occurred in that machine shop that the boss come over and he said, we're building a room here. He said, you're going to go in there. So he had the machine in there and all. I didn't know this, but I had a key for it. And I was working on a project. And then one day, an inspector come in here. So he examined everything, and he turned around. So that's when I found out that it was government work. And we were making clutch plates for the tanks.
And what year was that?
That was 1940 and 41.
How aware were you at the time of the war going on in Europe, the tension between the Germans and everybody else, and the blitzkriegs, and how much did you hear about that?
Oh, I heard it, read about it and everything else, but I was still home yet at that point.
At that time, looking back, did you think it would ever affect your life?
No.
What did you think the worst that could happen?
The worst that I thought was if the United States would go into the war, that we will probably get drafted or go to war. Excuse me. And that's what we all talked about. He said that you go to war, it looks like we all going to go in. This is what our conversation was.
Now, at any time, prior to 1940, 41, did you ever experience any discrimination or racism because you're from Italian ancestry?
Never come across that. To give an example, they in my neighborhood, they had a black baseball team. They called themselves Garfield Colored Giants, and I played with them. I caught with them, played baseball, and we played all over. This is never heard of anything like that. never occurred in that neighborhood.
Was there any talk about concern that Italy was going to get in the war, and anything that might affect Italy affect you guys?
Well, we did discuss, you know, we just discussed what was happening with Mussolini there with the war. You know, we had conversations on that, and we didn't expect, you know, to go to that soon, you know, into the war, that the United States was going to declare war on them. But we did have conversations on them.
Had you known or met any Japanese Americans in your lifetime up to that point?
Oh, yes. When we had a parade up in Chinatown, you know, it was mixed area, you know. We all congregated after the parade and everything because it was all mixed denominations, you know. Yeah, so there was nothing there. And we did have a Japanese family. They had a little tailor shop, a laundromat. But somehow or another, they left the area, you know. And that's my contact with them. Yeah.
Growing up, I want to talk about a little bit about how you saw yourself, how you defined who Charlie was. Was there ever a question about whether you were American or not American?
No.
Never came up.
Never came up. Never come up. Well, we used to joke around, you know. I mean, with the Polish, you know, like everybody else, you know. Like on a baseball field, you know, you Polak, and yeah, you Guinea, or you Thai, you know. It was all in jest, you know. There was no animosity. It was just fun. But never did we have any problems where race, creed, or nationality was involved.
What does it mean to be an American to you?
Well, to be an American, it gives you your freedom, gives you your freedom of speech, and you have the freedom of doing things that you wish to do, you know, and as long as you're a law-abiding citizen, you do whatever you want, you know, as long as you don't violate the law.
Now, you're about 21 years old, a little over 21 years old, and you're working in a machine shop. I imagine you're making pretty good money at the time.
Yeah.
That's a good paying job.
Yeah.
What were you looking to do with your life? What were the things you wanted to accomplish at that time, prior to the war?
At that time, my aims and my sights were tool and die making, and to teach children music, and to help children, and help the neighborhood wherever I can. That was my aim and my sights at that time.
And at the time, you were actually doing all those things.
Right. Yes.
Life's pretty good, huh?
Yeah. That's what I was doing.
December 7th, 1941, the Japanese Imperial Navy attacks Pearl Harbor Naval Base.
Right.
Did you know where Pearl Harbor actually was at the time?
Yes. One of my classmates actually, he was a neighbor of mine. Right? After graduation, he joined the Navy, and he was stationed in Pearl Harbor. And the families were very close, and his older brother and I, we used to hang out together. His older brother was a pitcher, and I was a catcher, you know. And he sent a picture home of himself, you know, and this is how we really knew Pearl Harbor. And another area, the fella gave us a little clubhouse behind this fella's home, and we hung his picture up that he was in Pearl Harbor. And when the bombing come, right, everybody ran to his home, you know, talked to his mother and father, and all. His mother was screaming, his father was screaming, and he couldn't help that, you know. Their son was out there, and we all felt it. There's no two ways, you know. We felt it, and we were just hoping and praying that he was safe. And it turned out that he was safe, but he wound up in the hospital, and then he come home. Right? And that was our commitment at that time, because we were worried about him, now that he was out there. And what happened was that we all congregated down to a little clubhouse, right, and somebody turns around and says, the picture's not here. Right. So look, the picture wasn't there. So we find out that his sister went down there and took the picture. Right? So she turned around, she said, I want this picture. I want it in my room. Okay, you gave it, you know. So that's how we were involved at Pearl Harbor.
It's interesting. Pearl Harbor wasn't just this headline you read on a newspaper.
Uh-huh.
It was actually the face and the name of somebody from your neighborhood, somebody you knew.
Right.
Somebody you liked. What was that guy's name?
His name was Chiodo, and we nicknamed him Red because he had a little red hair. Di Stefano.
I'm sorry, he's the what?
Di Stefano. His name is Grazia, nickname Red, Di Stefano.
When a world event happens, because that's a world event, Pearl Harbor being attacked, but you're able to put a face on it and a name. Right. Tell me a little bit about the emotional effect that goes through the neighborhood. I know the mom and dad were screaming, they were upset. I would be too. But how does it affect the entire neighborhood? What happens?
Well, here's what happened. The neighborhood, regardless of race, color, or creed, all right, they all met down at the field, at the ball field, right? And we had a Catholic minister, had a Lutheran, a Catholic priest, Lutheran minister, Baptist, you know, and there was a big congregation, but it wasn't all one religion. It was everybody. It was religion, right? All praying, that he come home safe. And that's the only way I could explain it.
That's a great story. That is so great. Okay. Where were you, or physically, what were you doing when you heard that Pearl Harbor had been bombed?
I remember I was working. And I was working because what happened, I hear the fellas hollering.
I'm sorry, can we stop tape? We got a siren. Okay. You're working in a machine shop when you hear the news.
Right. They come tapping on the door, and they open the door, and they said, hey, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Right. So I was at work that time. And what happened was that the boss turned around and he said, close down everything. And closed down everything, and we went home. And that's when I went down to the house.
You were drafted in the Army.
I was drafted.
How did they teach you to be a good soldier? What was the things that they wanted you to learn that would make you a really, really good soldier?
Well, basic training, basic training. We had seminars with it, and we had classes with it. And mainly discipline and calmness, especially during the combat wars,
What did you like most about being a soldier?
Well, the only thing was that the experience I received. The experience, not from the front lines only, but the experience that I was able to see Italy, France, the Panama Canal, Manila, the Philippine Islands, California. That was an experience in itself.
Getting to see a lot of the world.
A lot of the world, right.
What was the worst thing about being a soldier?
Well, the worst thing was the front lines. And being part of the Lost Battalion up in the Vargas Mountains, not knowing if we were going to come out of there alive or what, in the Vargas Mountains, because we were surrounded, and there was no way we could get down, no way we could come off. But one thing we did know was that we saw the Germans, and there was water down the bottom. So several of them would go down to get the water, bring it up, help and we boil it. And mainly we would give it to those that were wounded to help them, you know. And the sight was unbearable. That was there. And I was very, very fortunate that one of the soldiers that was with me turned around and he said, "Run this way, towards me." So I ran towards him and a tree fell. And what happened was the end of one of the little branches got my shoulder. Yeah? And it was horrifying, you know. And then with the shells coming, you know, and then to see the boys laying there and you're helpless, you can't treat them, can't help them. And it was a terrible sight. And we couldn't get off there until we were liberated.
Tell me a little bit about how you ended up in the Lost Battalion. Where did you start out in the Army?
I started out in Fort Dix, New Jersey. And I went to Columbia, South Carolina, to Fort Jackson. And I was assigned to the 100th Division, Company F, 399th, the 2nd Battalion of the 399th Infantry Division. And while I was there, there was a few people from my town that were there, and one of them, we couldn't understand how they drafted him because he was 47 years old, he was limping. Well, finally they discharged him. But then I find out that my brother was in the Signal Corps, the 100th Division Signal Corps. So I went up to the Signal Corps, and he was in his tent. He had his back to me. So jokingly, I turned around and I said to him, I said, "You want to play cards on Harrison Avenue, Frederick Street?" He turned around. He's a little son of a gun. So so we met over there, and I took my basic training here, and then we went to maneuvers in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And from the maneuvers there, it was in the dead of winter, and we were back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And a little while later, they called my name out, and they said, "You're going to Newport News, Virginia." So I went to Newport News, and the next thing I know, I'm on a boat traveling. And we landed in Marseille, France. So when we got to Marseille, France, they checked us all out. And then what happened is that they processed me, And they said, get on the truck. So I got on here, and it was Montelamar. They said, you're going into Company 8, 141st Infantry Division of the 36th Texas Division. And I went with them all the way through. And when we got to the Fortress Mountains, we were the Lost Battalion.
Before we talk a little bit more about the Lost Battalion, after the training that you got stateside,
Yeah.
How well prepared did you feel you were, or did you think you were, to go fight? Did you have the tools you needed? Did you have the skills you need?
Right. I was well prepared. I was well prepared for it because of the training, you know. And I went there with one thing. It's my life that I got to save. I got to save the fellas that's with me. I said, we all have to, I'll never forget this, that they turned around and they said, don't forget, we're all one. And I said, we're all one. Right? And that was it.
Just like the neighborhood.
And then we went to, when we were liberated, and we went to the town of St. D.
Before we get to town, the tapes. Okay, we were talking about your military experience now, and how you got into the Army, the different places you went to learn soldiering, what you like best about soldiering, what you like least, and you're in Europe. What I did forget to ask is, prior to the war, did you have a steady girlfriend, or were you totally single?
I was totally single.
Okay.
You know, I had girlfriends.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. So
then I met my master, my wife.
Now, you were engaged to her when?
Before I went into service.
Okay, now you're over in Europe. You're a soldier.
Yeah.
Describe to me the first combat that you saw.
The first combat I saw was in Montelamar, when I was assigned to Company 8, 141st Infantry Division of the 36th. And I was assigned to Sergeant Jenkins and Lieutenant Marty Higgins. And my third one, I think it was the third day is when I saw the gruesome sights of our boys. There was a big battle there, and that's when I said, we have to do something here. So we can't see your envoys like this. I said, to the fellas, I didn't even meet them. And I just said it to them because I was just assigned to them. You know, and they all had the same feeling. Yeah, you got to get it over with. You know? So then, that was the experience that stayed with me. To see the sights that were there. And then, when we advanced to the Dobbs River we had to cross that river. So they asked for volunteers in swimming. So I volunteered, and they tied the guide ropes around us, and we swam to the other side. Now, when we got to the other side of the Dobbs River, we were in sort of an alcove. And then when the boys started coming, that's when the shelling started. So they couldn't get us because, like I stated, we were in that alcove. But they were getting the other boys. So they had to pull back from there. And then we heard shelling. It was ours going over. And finally the boys came through. And we got to the top. There were 12 of us scattered. We saw this big building. It was a big, large building with a textile. And your fabric was still some in here. So, to play safety first, the other boys threw grenades down the bottom. And so we didn't hear no screaming, nothing. So there was come through. And it was after this building where we got the shelling. And from there, went to the school and right into the Bosphorus Mountains.
Now, in those mountains, how thick are the trees? How close are they together?
I couldn't describe it because I was one of them that was assigned to climb to the highest peak. It was winding. You had a winding area going up to the, and we had to find our way up. At one point, we had to worry about the rock loosening up. So we got up to the top, and I was assigned to the right flank. And I went over to the right flank with the boy, another scout. And we gave the signal that the Germans were down there. And then when we congregated, they said the Germans are on our left, the Germans are in the rear, the Germans are in the front. And we said we cut off. And there was, the only contact we could make was one of us had to go down and make contact with our men down here, but the sights were unbearable. And fighting your way around the trees and worrying about the rocks loosening up. So finally, after we were up there, we were liberated.
Before you were liberated, you're surrounded by the Germans in front, to your left, behind you, and to your right. Nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go whatsoever.
How do you protect yourself? How did you do that? I mean, they were all over.
Well, we protected ourselves. The area that we were in up the high, up there, uh, there was cover that we could take. Now, no matter where the shells were, there was no way they could get us because of the cover that we had up there. We were thankful for that, we had our protection. But we had to worry every time we did go out scouting. We didn't know what was going to come, up. So, now remember at one point, one of the boys turned around. He said, "Charles," he says, "duck." So I ducked, right? And it was a ball of rock rolling down in front of me. Right? So finally, after they liberated us, we were all ragged and everything else. And all I can remember after that was that there was a supply truck, and we got some new clothing, and we refurbished with ammo, and after we got done, we started to walk through the woods, and got to the other side, and all of a sudden we hear popping in the ground, and the shots coming. So we scattered, right? And then we turned around, and we hear one of our boys turn around and says, "I got the sniper." We went in there, and it was a woman. I don't think she was about 15. She was up in a tree sniping at us. A woman. So finally we got cleared out of there, and we went on the road, and we don't know. I don't know to this day why we were told to stop in the road. We were walking on both sides of the road, and the tanks come through. So when the tank stopped, and all of a sudden I hear somebody call my name out. I'm looking, and I see this fellow running. And he was in the back of the tank. He come running to me. He was one of my neighbors. Now, what happened was, when they told us to stop, the tanks went around, and I didn't notice until after the war that this neighbor, when they went around and they got off the tanks, they were captured. They were held prisoners of war. And I didn't know it at the time, because I found this out when we came back home, that he was a prisoner of war. Now, we went to the town of St. D. And I still don't know from this day, and few people don't know, I was told to get on a truck by a lieutenant. I got on a truck, I saw other people get on a truck, and the next thing I know, we're at a railroad station. So we were told to get on the boxcar. Next thing I know, 2 days later, I'm back in Marseille. And I said, so what happened here? You know, I'm very puzzled. And I reported to the staff sergeant. I explained my plight to him. He turned around, he said, you're going right to the hospital. Got a Jeep and drive it, said, take him to the hospital. You got to get checked out. So they checked me out. I come back, and they processed me. They said I was coming home. So I was on a ship. And the next thing I know, one of the fellows turns around. He says, you know, we're in Italy. It can't be. I said, we're home. I'm going home. He said, no, we're in Naples. So I wound up in Naples in a sub replacement depot. Good thing I'm supposed to go home. So the wind-up is that I was processed a few days later. Oh, before that, I had sent a letter to my cousin, who was in Naples, with Yak Act. So when I went to Naples, now in the 7th replacement depot, we went to the PX, and they gave us coffee. So I saw a fellow, my cousin's insignia that I got. So I gave him a note to give to my cousin. So my cousin, I learned this after. My cousin turned around, he says, you sure that he gave you the note, this is his name? He said, yeah, he said, this is his name. He gave it to me. He said, I just got a letter from him, he's in the front lines of France. Well, it turns out that he come looking for me, and he found me. And my cousin and I, we met in the 7th replacement depot. And he turned around, he said to me, tomorrow I'm taking you. Wound up that we were 12 people from our neighborhood there at the replacement depot. The following morning, I was called out, and he says, you're going home. And I said, good. Well, what happened, they put me on a train. I wound up in Rome. And when I got to Rome, they said, you're going in their 760th railway outfit. So I was with the 760th railway outfit in Rome. And there we learned how to operate the diesels. And I was given the opportunity to take the car, and I went and see my relatives down in Calabria for the Easter week. I was down there, and I come back, and said, you're going home. I wound up in Naples again, in a 7th replacement. So they processed me, they said, you're going home. We're at the Panama Canal. I said, what are we doing here? Nobody spoke, nobody wanted to say anything. The next thing you know, we landed, I'm in Manila, in the Philippine Islands. And there, to this day, I still don't know what outfit I was assigned to, all I know is I was assigned to guard duty over there, and none of the officers that I spoke with, and I explained to them that I was in France, I was supposed to go home, and fell on deaf ears. So finally, I met a major, and I said to him, Major, can I speak to you, please? He says, yeah, what's your problem? So I told him, I said, I was in the front lines in France with the 36th Infantry Division. I don't know what I'm doing here. So he says, come on to my office. I went in your office. He says, tell me your story. So I told him. And he says, I have no idea why you're here. He said, you're going to go home. So he said, the ship was leaving the 26th of December. And I got on the ship. He made sure I got on there. And the next thing I know, I landed in Long Beach, California.
Before we get into your getting on back to the United States, that's great the way you showed us your Army career, how you got transferred around and then finally ended up home. I do need to go back to the Vosges Forest a little bit and ask you some specific questions. Back there, the battalion outran its supply lines, and you get surrounded by the Germans. Your leader, Marty Higgins. Tell me a little bit about Marty Higgins. Who is he, and how did he keep you going?
Marty Higgins was the brains that we were liberated. And after we were liberated, he led us to safety through the valley. He led us through the safety through the valley into the other woods. And my memory served me right. We didn't have no casualties there of our company. And he led us out of the woods and onto the street through Reminder and St. D. He was a great leader, had great knowledge, and before he would do anything, he would explain it to everybody, and he would lead us. And he was a great, great leader.
When you're in a situation where you're surrounded by Germans, though, there's really nowhere to go.
Right.
What was his plan?
His plan?
Yeah.
I have no idea at the time, because like I stated, he was down the bottom, we were up on the top. We didn't have that much contact outside of we laying down there where the Germans were laying. So to speak, we were sort of the scouts up on the top.
What was your plan? How did you think you were going to get out of this mess?
Well, one of the fellas found a way of getting down to the mountain. Right? And he turned around. He said, there's a way of getting down. He said, but we're leaving ourselves wide open because there's a valley. Right? So finally, when we got the word to come down, right, to be together with Marty and Marty Higgins, the lieutenant at the time, right? We all thanked him that that we were all safe and sound, but we did lose casualties. We had casualties there. But he was a great leader and a great mind, and for terrain-wise, very intelligent.
How low did you get in supplies?
Well, we got down to, I only had less than a clip of shells for the gun, for the rifle, right? And because we had used them prior to that. And clothing, we had no clothing. And we did have some nasty weather, you know. We couldn't get out of that. We just had to adjust to it. The weather, you know, there was no place for cover. It was all open. And the only thing that we said, let's hope there's no lightning or anything. I said, because we were in all these trees, you don't know what's going to happen.
Did you ever think that you weren't going to make it out?
At one point.
Tell me about that.
Well, four of us were there, and we walked around, and we saw that we were surrounded. And on our right flank, there was no way possible that we could get out there. And when we went to the right, there was no way possible to get out of that. Now, to the rear of us, forget it. We were no way. Like I stated, that one of the boys found a way, but we would be exposed to fire, shelling, and all. And then that's when we turned around and said, there's no way we're going to make it. Because if we go down, we're dead ducks. Right? And as it turned out, like I stated, we had a sniper over there. Right? If we'd have went down there, right, God only knows what would have happened.
Is that the worst situation you've ever been in your entire life?
Right. The worst. The worst situation that I've ever been in my entire life. And it was horrifying. It was gruesome. And it was terrible.
What did you know about the segregated Japanese-American unit prior to your time in the Vosges?
The only thing that I heard, and this is what it was, that there was Japanese who were somewhere on the bottom, American Japanese, that were on the bottom. Right? And we never did find out what part they played in it, but as long as they were down at the bottom, and there was no Germans there, so they had to play some big part in it. That's my opinion of it, because otherwise we wouldn't be either there. And as it turned out, later on, when the books come out, it winds up that the company that I was with the 100th Division, the Yep. They were also coming up on the, yeah.
Did you actually meet any of the Japanese American soldiers at the time?
Yes. Yeah, when we got down to the bottom, I did speak to, to a couple of them, but then we had to pull out. So I can't say that, that we had a long conversation, but I did say hello and, and thanks and just walked away because I was called.
How strange was it to see a Japanese face in an American uniform?
It was very strange. I never expected it. I never expected that. It was strange. It was odd, that they were Americans. And we were very appreciative of what they